We're at the Cronan Ranch. This ranch dates back to the 1800s. I'll do a little history overview when we get to the main ranch site. Today it's used for sheep herding. We may get to see some sheep. They are guarded by dogs, but you can graze the fence and take some photos, some video. Today, this ranch has been preserved for mountain bikers, people like me who want to hike, walking trails, horseback, equestrian trails. Due to the drought, everything is brown, straight up brown. This should be green ranch land. It's not. Trees are dying. I'll show you. They have this type of flower species. There's also a couple other ones I've seen. There's two types of yellow flowers growing here. I've never seen these type before. Very unique to the area. Just like most of the Sierras, different regions have, well, these are the Sierra foothills, but still considered the Sierra Nevadas. But different regions have types of foliage and wildlife. For example, you might have oak trees here, and when you get up in Nevada, the Sierra Nevadas, you may have aspens. It varies. Now the trail is it's an old dirt road. This is a wagon road. You have to understand that ranches like this were very relevant in the area because they provided food for the miners of Coloma, the first place in California where gold was discovered in 1848, which led to the gold rush. This is gold country. You have also Placerville, which at the time in the 1800s was the third, or it was known as Hangtown as well, but was the third largest town in California. That's pretty close by, and you have to understand ranches like this provided beef, milk, even possibly some food and livestock for the local mining camps. If you go about 10 miles from here, there's also the mining camp or ghost town of Salmon Falls, which is on Folsom Lake. Technically, we're on the backside of Folsom Lake. There's a lot of hawks too. I'm not sure if I can zoom in on them. You can see them. You know why? There's a lot of snakes in this high grass and a lot of rodents and mice, and they love it. This is all ranch land. You can still see the property lines. It's one of the older ranches in California, and it is a relevant site. It's a historic site today. One of the best kept gems in the magical Sierra foothills near Folsom Lake. I've never hiked on the backside of Folsom Lake, but next month we're going to be visiting a quarry by Folsom Lake and a couple ghost towns. I couldn't fit them in today because we're going to be going to Gold Bug Mine, and there's a stamp mill and the Meager House. We also have plans to visit the Pilot Hill Cemetery, which is one of the last remaining remnants of the ghost town of Centerville, aka Pilot Hill. Actually, it's called Pilot Hill today, but back in the 1800s they call it Centerville. There's only a few things left, a few remnants of the past left. One, the Bailey House, which was the first grange in California, served as a saloon, a hotel, had multiple uses. We've already done the Bailey House. We have not investigated the inside, but we did do the property. It was made in the 1800s with thousands of bricks. A railroad tycoon owned it. The Bailey House is just a few miles up the main road. This hike will take us to the ranching, the old ranch land and some of the structures from the 1800s. Whoa, that bird just flew right over my head. A lot of large birds, eagles and hawks. But like I was saying earlier in my video, not many remnants remain of the original ghost town site. You have the Bailey House from the 1800s. Had multiple purposes. We have it updated on our site. I'm kind of doing these places in different regions to connect the dots. Because technically, if we explore this ranch, then we can tie it in with the Bailey House. There's a few ruins along the American River out here. You got to find them, but the remnants of the ghost town. However, the Bailey House and this ranch are some of the only remaining structures of Pilot Hill, or the original town site of Centerville. Call it what you will. We're exploring remnants of an old mining camp and ranching community. Ranches like this probably would have provided beef, livestock, and food for the miners of Centerville and Pilot Hill. Now, the Bailey House had their own barn. Oh man, the sun is bright. Beautiful sight. They didn't have to provide food for them. As I was saying, the Bailey House had its own ranch land, barn, stables. Today it's abandoned, still being restored, but it is abandoned. Had 2 ballrooms, a wine cellar. It's an amazing place. And I've tried to get in because I'm trying to get raise money for them to do renovations and restore this location. Here's the other set of flowers. You have 2 types right there. These are the 2 common flowers that grow on this ranch land. But the Bailey House owners, or society, had refused my help. They did let a ghost group in, and they took pictures of dust and called it ghost. And I don't know, I think it needs to be done right. EVPs, readings, add a little science to it, put it on our site, and help. I could raise a ton of money. They just don't want my help. It's a shame. They're struggling to restore the place. They don't have enough funding. They could get it from us, and they refused us. But we did visit the Bailey House. There's a lot of buildings on site. I was able to explore what I could explore. They had goats guarding the property, believe it or not. So, maybe next time we'll go visit it. One of these days, we'll do a little night trip out there. And then there's some remnants along the American River, where gold was first discovered. Placer gold. Placer gold is found along in the rapids of the American River. It's how the town of Placerville had gotten its name, because of its placer gold. And this ranch will take you right to the edge of the American River. There's 3 forks, north, south, and middle. And we'll have a nice picnic over on the river or under some shady trees where some of the oldest barns and ranch buildings stand in Placer County in Northern California. But this is really beautiful country. There's a lot of trees. It sucks that it's brown out here, but it's still beautiful. I'll be back with more footage. We're taking you along the Cronan Ranch Wagon Trail. Wow, some beautiful country here. Miles and miles of ranch land. These hills have deer, coyote. Well, we know they got ticks. There's a lot of wildlife. Eagles, hawks. I don't think there's really any bear that are over here. Some pretty harsh brush up in there. There's probably areas of this ranch that remain unexplored. Like up in the woods, there's woods everywhere. I'll tell you what, if we do not get water out here, this place can turn into a desert. The trees are dying, the leaves are changing colors along the road or back in here. A lot of the trees are dead. Fields are brown. There's just no water. I don't know. Broke apart pretty easy, didn't it?
It was already broken.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't break it. It's stone, but I'm just trying to figure out. Oh my god, I was straight okay. I was like, oh my god, did I just get horse shit on my hands?
You always hope you don't get the horse shit on your feet and hands. That means you're playing mud pies. It's nice country back in here, though. I like it. It's a little hot out today. But there's some areas that have shade coming up. The picnic bench at the barns, and then you have the river, some shade along the river. Definitely worth at least a visit here. It's one of the oldest ranches in Northern California, and still partially intact, and still used. Just sheep herding, but it's still ranching. Home on the range here. Sierra foothills are unique all in itself. They may not be as high and mountainous, but they are hilly and full of a variety of trees. No butterflies out though. Expect to see a lot of butterflies flying over the meadow, over the ranch land, and there's just none. Should almost be at the barns. It's not a very long trail. Yeah. Some sheep off in the distance. It's just more proof that sheep do roam this area. The cattle don't seem to be grazing. They probably don't raise cattle here anymore. It's a great area to have sheep. It says the sheep are free range, but then they tell you, don't get near them because they're guarded by dogs, and you're thinking to yourself, well, they're free range sheep, so what am I supposed to do if I'm hiking and they come running through here and the dog's following them? So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit contradicting. It's nice to be able to come out here and be in nature. It's about as natural as it's going to get. These sheep are very happy to be grazing here, and we're just happy to be able to hike in gold country in the Sierra foothills. Now I'm taking EVPs and readings at the barn sites. You have over 100 years of activity, so you might get some kind of energy. These things are booking.
Look at these dragonflies.
Hold on, I'm coming. Cool. Now this is a beautiful sight. We still got a ways to go. At about an eighth, a little more than an eighth, a quarter of a mile away. But we will get there. And we'll check it out. I'll do some readings. Rest under a tree. It's historic. That's what people don't understand. PGS, the Paranormal Ghost Society, we don't just do extreme adventures, caves, tunnels, cemeteries, or ranches, or abandoned houses, or asylums. We do a variety of things. And I mix it up. One week we might be looking for Bigfoot. The next week we might be investigating ghosts. The next week we might be doing a little urban exploring and uncovering history and mystery. We're a very versatile paranormal adventure group. And I don't think people understand. Our work's been ongoing since we opened up our doors in 2001. And we've been going strong since. It's dedication and it's commitment. And we get a lot of haters on YouTube who put us down, tell us off, try to tell us what we seen or what we didn't see, or they're like, oh, you didn't climb that mountain. Oh, that mountain takes a couple hours. Yeah, okay. Climbing a 4,000 foot cliff takes a couple hours? Sure, buddy. It's easy. You know, we had somebody message me the other day. We climbed Job's Peak, me and my son. You have to bushwhack your way through. You have to push through brush, climb around the cliffs. You have to camp overnight if you start from the bottom. There's no trails. And, you know, this guy's talking like he doesn't even know anything about the area. So, I guess my point is, is that when you watch these videos, try to understand that we've been there and we've done it. And if you want to ask questions, ask questions. I'll gladly tell you what's here. But don't assume anything. Watch the videos, sit back, and feel like you're part of the journey. This is a journey, and all of you who are viewing this video are with me on this journey. We're taking you to some of the finest historical sites and national landmarks in the nation, the world. Just tag along for the ride and enjoy it for what it is. It's not like you get to see such an old ranch, such a historic ranch like this. There's only one Cronan Ranch, so appreciate it. We do extreme adventures, and then sometimes when my family's not around, I amp it up to something a little more, and other times my family helps me out with projects like these. This is a family place. Doesn't mean it's not haunted or there's no UFOs or paranormal, but it's historic and it's a learning experience for you, my family, and everybody alike. Wow. That's so cool. There's a couple hikers out there. See what we can see. I continue to hear sheep. We're kind of close to them. Bah. They're loud. Wow. As you can see, we're almost at the heart of the ranch. Let me tell you about this area. The Native Americans had inhabited this land for hundreds of years, perhaps 1,000. They'd come up from the Sacramento Valley to hunt, fish along the American River, gather plants. A lot of the families, which were the Mormons that came through here in the 1840s, they used to camp along the American River, which is found beyond this ranch. We're trying to work with the American River a little today to give you an introduction to the area, because I have ghost towns and other historic sites along the river, but we wanted to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. We did start with Folsom Lake, then we worked our way east a little to this ranch. But they'd come here to the cool conifer forest. A lot of early pioneers in the summer. And then the gold rush, which began in 1849, 1848 when the Mormons discovered gold, and then it brought in other Europeans and immigrants to the area. And along the South Fork of the American River, that was being mined for gold, ranches were erected, like the one you see here. William Bacchi had lived in a hometown of Canto, Ticino, and in 1851 he migrated to this region. And by 1856, Bacchi had acquired the land and cattle in El Dorado County, and then started the Bacchi Ranch. Today it's called the Cronan Ranch, and I'll explain why. It was first acquired by the Central Pacific Railroad, just like the Bailey House. The Bailey House, its owner, was a railroad tycoon. Those guys had money, so they could build elaborate ranches and barns and structures, which still stand today. These are a testament to its time. But through federal land, he got a federal land patent in 1887. Michael Cronin acquired the property later on from the Central Pacific Railroad in 1891. The ranch was grazed by the Cronin family until 1918, and then it was sold to a George and James Murphy. Of course, the Murphy family had used the ranch for a time and sold the property to Byron and Francis Bacchi in 1945. So again, it went to the Bacchi family. And then in 2004, a portion of the ranch, not the entire ranch, because you still see sheep grazing here, but a portion of it was used to create a park. And it says the Bacchi Ranch remains active. So basically it changed hands. Originally started with the Bacchi family in the mid-1800s, Was sold to a few different individual ranch owners, and now it belongs again to the Bacchi family. And there's the South Fork of the American River. So we're going to visit the South Fork today. It's a wonderful place, and we really need to appreciate it for what it is. Take some photos, learn about this historic site. A lot of mountain bikers. It's the area to do it, within the foothills. It's pretty cool here.
The sign is still there. Yeah.
Wow. It's nice. It's more extensive than I thought.
Oh, Dad, look, it's a spider. Spooder, look. Dad, look, it's a spooder. Spoon man. Oh,
Jumping at you.
oh good.
Take a look at this.
It's so little.
Wander the grounds a little.
Oh, that was fun.
Watch out for snakes, guys, and ticks. Wow. A lot of outbuildings. It's very overgrown. Like I said, you gotta watch for, there's a tick warning and there's a snake warning. You gotta watch for both. Everything's collapsing, but some of it's still standing, and it's history. Look at the shingles on that roof. We gotta preserve what's left. So yeah, it is very important, and it is very relevant that we add this to our site and help with the preservation of this location. If I get some EVPs, I get some readings, that would be good too. It's possible sites like these could contain ghosts or be haunted. You don't know till you try, and if it's not, that's okay. We're an urban exploration and adventure group. Do a lot of family-friendly type of sites. We also do some extreme paranormal adventures too, into Bigfoot, UFOs, conspiracies. It just depends. This is one of these sites that you can take the family, take some readings, some EVPs, see if you get anything. Definitely going to put a nice historical write-up on our site with photos and nature. It's quite extensive. We hope you enjoy this little tour. It's really not the Cronan Ranch, it's the Bacchi Ranch. It's where it all started. If it wasn't for Bacchi, this ranch would never exist. Central Pacific Railroad, its tycoons owned a lot of ranch land. With the money they received from the railroad, they used it to build ranches like you see here. Not just ranches, but other sites as well. Like the Bailey House. Wow. Wow. It's history, man. Troughs. A lot of wood posts from fences. The Bailey House, known as Bailey's Folly, was built by Alexander Bailey in 1862, which is just up the road from this ranch. Fire had destroyed it. It was 3 stories, a brick mansion. In 1861 was the fire, and then it was rebuilt. It's the grandest building in the state, they said. 6 squared pillars grace its front, providing support for travelers. Because it was a hotel. A lot of gold Rush miners came and stopped at Bailey's Folly. It was built by Alexander A. Bailey, railroad tycoon, much like Bacchi. Just two different industries. Bacchi came here and ranched this land, and Bailey came here to build a grange and a hotel with the saloon. He built his hotel because he thought the Central Pacific Railroad would pass close to it. However, it never did. Grand opening took place in 1862. The railroad changed its route and bypassed the area, and eventually the rest is history. It became abandoned. And so you see what stands today. If you visit our site and look for the Bailey house, very little, just the brick structure, the barns, and then you have this ranch a few miles away. It's very nice here. So I ran into a couple hunters. While I was filming, they were talking to Tammy. And they told Tammy that these buildings are part of a movie set. And they built them for, I guess, some wild western movie. This is House on the Prairie type of stuff. Movie set or not, they're relevant in some way, shape, or form. The ranch itself dates back to over 150 years ago. So you have to look at it. I could still get EVPs here. Some of the movie set sites, you never know. I mean, these structures are probably easily 50, 60 years old. Could they be haunted? I suppose so. Correct my mistake earlier, it's not the oldest part of the ranch, but we are in the heart of the ranch. I mean, at one time there was outbuildings, stables, barns. So it's not the oldest structure in this county. However, a lot of the early immigrants camped along the South Fork of the American River, which is just half mile, if not less, from here. And then the ranch was established, which provided the miners livestock, beef, food, cattle, horses, sheep milk, wool for the miners of the gold rush. Coloma's just a few miles up the road. First place gold was discovered. Mormons came through this ranch land in 1848, 1849. So it's still very old, even if the structures are not as old as I perceive them to be. No less, pretty cool, huh? It's hard to believe that these structures were used in a movie. But we still must preserve them. They are still a part of this ranch land's history. As Lord Rick, check out our site, www.paranormalghostsociety.org. For ranches, abandoned houses, catacombs, cemeteries, asylums, scenic remote locations, and every paranormal topic A to Z. Ghosts, UFOs, aliens, monsters, conspiracies, Bigfoot, cryptids, lake monsters, mysteries. All of it compiled together for over 1,000 cases. On our website, the Paranormal Ghost Society, www.paranormalghostsociety.org. This is your founder. Peace. We are home on the range. Wow. It's magical here. The drought has really affected us greatly in this region. Everything's brown. This ranch land has been green for 150 years. In the last 2-3 years, all the trees and ranch land's dying. Pretty soon you won't even see sheep grazing. But for now, we'll enjoy what we can, when we can. Home on the range. Not much has changed in the last 160 years. Last 1,000 years. Except Mother Nature. Mother Nature always throws a wrench in your plans. But this place still is magical. And our next stop, the South Fork of the American River. It would help if we read the signs first before we assume things, but I started filming from the top. As I said, it's a movie set earlier, and then Jared looked. Let me see.
2003.
Originally, this structure was built in 2003 for the movie Love Comes Softly, starring Katherine Heigl and Dale Midkiff. It was constructed quickly and skillfully as a movie set, but was never built to last. It is now unsafe to enter. You are welcome to look inside. There isn't much to see. Please help us preserve this interesting feature of Cronan Ranch by keeping it safe and staying outside. Bureau of Land Management. Wow, boy, do I feel like a moron. It's okay, though. We can add it on our site and just put down movie set, right? The river should be interesting. I think I'm going to go for a swim or a dip. See, I was wrong. Built in 2003, and it looks like it's 60, 70 years old or part of the ranch. But it's all good. You know, this is still a historic area that we're standing in. And, had a nice little picnic at the bench under the tree. It's all good. It's pretty country. Like I said, this gold country's magical. The kid said this is moving. I don't know if it's a hunter, but we're heading up to the American River. Something reflective. I don't know what that could be, but it was moving earlier. It's very scenic back here for being ranch land. It's not the most scenic in the Sierra Nevada foothills, but these hills have a lot of conifers and beautiful trees and foliage. And when the drought ends, it'll be green here once again. This actually cuts down. Hear the river? That's the river, the rapids. Yeah, this cuts along the edge of the sheep grazing area once we continue to head south. We're almost to the edge of the meadow where they roam. Maybe I'll get some more photos and video of the sheep grazing. The river's right up here, guys. You can see it. You can see all the green trees growing along it straight ahead. It just goes straight and cuts right to the river. I don't know what that was, Jared, but I zoomed in. I videotaped it. I took pictures. It didn't move, but I'm not saying I don't believe you. I just have to study it further. Looked like an animal at first looking at me, but it could be a hunter. I won't want to be in that brush. This stuff's prickly. My socks are full of prickles because I decided to venture in the brush looking around. Big mistake. Big, big mistake. It's like the savannah of Africa back in here, man. Jeez. The American River. We took a shortcut to cut across to the river. It's like the savannah of Africa, as I was telling Tammy. You could picture zebras, lions, and giraffes running past you. Some of these trees almost look like they belong in Africa. It's very dry, arid. There's not a lot of shade. The sun is just beaming down. It's not even that hot, 80s right now. And it's, the index feels 1,000 degrees. I know one thing, my shirt's completely soaked, so it's pretty hot. Oh yeah. Might have to go swimming in the river just to cool off. It's flowing pretty well here, but you have to understand something. The American River is where the gold rush began. The gold rush sparked a wave of miners, immigrants, pioneers, because you had pioneers come into these mining camps, opening up general stores, and then you had the miners moving on in to mine the gold and the canyons and work at the mills found along here. So this river is very relevant. Yeah, there's nothing in the world like the American River. Due to drought, though, the whitewater rapids are non-existent. But you can still stand and wade in the water and enjoy it for what it is. Well, you have to understand, before this was ranch land, the Mormons and the early immigrants that travel along these wagon roads came to the river to water down their horses and camp along its shores. This is where placer gold is found. From here all the way to Coloma and beyond. I have a ghost town along this river. It's not near here, but maybe in September or October we can come back and visit the ghost town site. There's actually a few mining camps and ghost towns along the river. There are some hikes that you can get to these places. They're more extreme than this. This is just an introduction site to the American River, the South Fork, and early ranching in the foothills near Coloma. A nice little picnic bench back here. It's cozy, very scenic. I've heard a lot of talks about Gold Country having a high amount of Bigfoot sightings. I can imagine along the river that sightings would be on the increase, or at least abundant. Who's going to go through that brush to the tops? Something to live up there in the thick forest area, come down for water and food at night if it's nocturnal, so you have to keep an open mind. We may not be looking for Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean Bigfoot's not here. There are sightings along the American River and tracks and vocalization, so we have to keep an eye on those things, even if we don't find anything today. We're kind of mixing things up. We're investigating ghost and Bigfoot. A little bit of both here. If we find anything, we find anything. If not, we can help preserve the history through our website. This is nice. This is Lord Rick. Look at all the butterflies. Finally, butterflies. It's because it's moisture here. Wow. Pretty cool. Look how shiny the rock is. It's nice. South Fork of the American River. This is where all the gold mining began, which sparked the growth of the Wild West. Sacramento, cities like San Francisco, Placerville, Jackson, Sonora, Carson City, Virginia City, all due to this river. It's where it began, it's where it ended. I think that's what I'm about to do also. Looks like fun, man. What is that? Are those real berries? Hold on. Oh wow. That just signifies there might be some bears coming in. Whoa, he just went underwater. He's crazy. He doesn't care. He's probably going to be cooler than us all. One last thing, ladies and gentlemen. Tammy pointed out that there's berries growing in the woods, which is great for wildlife. Think about it. If you were a Sasquatch, that's all primitive beyond the river. So if you were nocturnal per se, you could remain elusive. You have everything you need. You have berries, you have remoteness, and you have a very lush river that continues the flow here. Just an example of why there's so many Bigfoot sightings along the American River, because these berries are very common. And this whole area, this little animal path, takes you through a lot of berries. There's a lot of thorns too. If you look, you can see it's a lot of thorn brush, which I already got hooked on. I have to be careful. But you can see the thorns. And yes, it'll prick the hell out of you. But for a Sasquatch, who cares? When you have a hide and thick fur, you're not going to feel a thing. We're a little thin-skinned as humans. No wonder why Sasquatch is so dominant around this region. Even though it's a Sierra foothills, this makes sense. You have a plentiful food supply. Even if you really get hungry, you could steal one of the sheep. That's why they have dogs guarding them. Because if they didn't have dogs, I'll tell you what, those sheep would be coming up missing daily. Especially if you were a 1,000-pound creature. Tidy whiteys. Anyways, this is Lord Rick. Check out our site, www.paranormalghostsociety.org. We're on the shore of the South Fork of the American River, just outside Coloma, California, where gold was discovered first. And this, my friends, is Gold Country. Wow, that's a good I could get a good photo. More berries, ladies and gentlemen. We're higher up above the river exploring. This would draw in a lot of deer and wild animals, which is why it's a prime spot for Bigfoot. See, Bigfoot have longer intestines. It's a primate-like creature, so it could digest berries that we normally could not eat, or foliage. And then again, maybe a deer is grazing per se on these berries, and bam, Sasquatch pounces and kills it. This is so remote out here. It's a home away from a home. The foothills have probably more Bigfoot sightings at times than the high Sierras. The foliage is thicker. You could have something 20 feet away standing there staring, you never see it. I've had some experiences in the foothills. I've had reports come in also along the American River, so we know something strange goes on out here. Whether, you know, it might be all due to timing or the right time of day, or it might be due to timing or being here at the right place, right time along the shore. Maybe midnight the activity increases. Maybe you got to sit on this bench around midnight and just set up some deer cams and night vision. Who knows? But I think that I'm open to the possibility. Nothing would leave tracks. This ground is very hard, full of brush, pine needles, leaves, and then you have the rocky shore of the American River. Leave no trace behind of its existence. It can come and go as it pleases. This river is so powerful. You see how smooth these rocks are? It's not because the rocks are geologically naturally formed this way. It's due to the flow of the river. This is 1,000,000 years of erosion from a fast-moving American river. And generally in the spring, when there's no drought and there's a lot of snow melt, this river is at least 10 to 20 feet deeper. For example, this island is underwater. These rocks are underwater. Rapids flow over them for thousands of years, making the tops of them very smooth. We're an educational site, so we want to teach you about the geology, the history, nature, and the paranormal all together. It's a package deal. But we're going to head out of here and go to our next site, which is Pilot Hill Cemetery. It's one of the oldest miner cemeteries in the state of California. It's a gold rush mining cemetery. It has miners from Coloma, Salmon Falls, the Folsom Lake, or Mormon Island, ghost town of Mormon Island. For example, this ranch land, some of the ranch hands that may have been buried at the Pilot Hill Cemetery may have also helped out. Everything's connected. So every location we do in a given region has a connection. For example, you might visit a ranch that its members are buried at the town cemetery. The town cemetery might be connected to, for example, the Bailey House, where some of the staff there and pioneers who once stayed at that hotel and Grange are now buried at that cemetery. And at the Gold Bug Mine, some of the miners buried in the cemetery may have worked at Hangtown in Placerville, which is Placerville. They renamed it because Hangtown sounded a little abrasive. But may have worked at the Gold Bug Mine, where we're going in a little bit. We're going to investigate the Hendy Stamp Mill, the Meager House, possibly the Priest Mine, the Gold Bug Mine, which is definitely open to the public. The other ones you need special permission, but I'll ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. They even have a renovated blacksmith shop. Same site where the original blacksmith shop was located, and then they built a new one. Because all the metal and the tools and anything used within the mines was made at that blacksmith shop. We're definitely going to go all out today. We're going to head out of the American River and out of the canyon across the... We're going to go across the Cronan Ranch lands and make our way back to the Jeep. Head to the cemetery and zip back to Placerville and finish up the day at the Gold Bug Mine. This is your founder, Lord Rick. This little vista point of the American River. We're about halfway out of here. We still got quite a ways. There's not a lot of shade, so if you hike here, ladies and gentlemen, my advice to you is bring a lot of water, especially in the summer. I don't do a lot of summer hiking without shade. We do a little, but not a lot. The whole thing is that I succeeded in my mission, and my mission was to bring my children here to go swimming, do a little family thing. Plus, you know, we can add it to our website and do a little history on it. It's going to help educate other schools and other colleges and institutes about Western history. A lot of the kids nowadays, if you live in California or Nevada, have to take Western history. It's very relevant out here. And that's what this place is. It's a piece of Western heritage. It's not just about Bigfoot or the ghosts that haunt this location. It's so much more than that. And for me to spend time with my kids is really an honor. To have them swim and not be glued to a gaming system. I've already come out ahead as a father. We'll keep pushing on. It's just so arid. A lot of little trails, hidden valley cut off. Most of these trails lead out to the main one or the river. I hear lots of birds. Lots of wildlife here, despite how the drought's affected the area. Now, there's no butterflies along this road, but if you get to the shore of the American River, I've seen about 4 different species of butterfly, 5. And they don't really stay still for too long, but they're very large. I've seen one that had a wingspan of 3 inches. Just flew right over my head. That's the kind of thing that makes a trip like this worthwhile. Snake?
Snake.
Snake.
Oh shit, hold this.
Oh.
He's going for it. I hear him, I don't see him. Yeah. Just keep your eyes open, guys. I'm running the camera, see if I can film them. Wild dogs, man. They got those too up here. I read an article about it, about the wild dogs of the Sierra Nevadas or the Sierra Gold Country, like the Foothills. That's what these are, the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. So wild dogs, or packs of them, are common. Strays hunt together, form a pack. I don't see them, but I know they're up here somewhere in this brush, probably, like up where these trees are. All kinds of wildlife here, man. Nothing surprises me. That's why I ran the camera, just to see if I could pick up their... What? Here, guys, stop. Boys. Uh-huh. Oh, I see it. Don't move.
What is that?
It's... Oh, shit. It's a sheep. That looks like a sheep. Do you think they're hunting it, maybe? Or is that the dogs protecting the sheep? Maybe it's the dogs protecting the sheep. That's a sheep up there. It's not a wolf. It looks like a fat, plump sheep with wool. Unless it's a deer. I can't tell because the trunk is blocking its head. You see it by the tree? It's possible that the dogs are protecting the sheep. They have a few dogs that do guard them, and they could be communicating with one another. It's so hard to say. Whatever it is, it's close. Hear them barking and howling. Not necessarily barking, just being a typical canine, making calls to other ones within the pack. That's got to be a sheep. It's by itself, though. I don't know, man. How weird. You're right, it is a sheep. I'm wondering if there's some coyotes that figure that's an easy meal. It's by itself. It's not good. It's not with the herd. It's gonna get eaten. I've been camping up in this area in the foothills, and there's packs of coyotes, and you see bones all the time of small animals and deer. They take them down as a pack. 8 coyotes can take down a sheep easily, or anything for that matter. Food is scarce, so they're gonna do what they can do. Now those dogs, or coyotes or whatever, those canines, they could be the guard dogs that are watching the herd. Oh, thank you. Can't wait to get to that gold bug mine. Get in the museum for a bit.
I can't wait to get in the Jeep and actually get moving. I'll hang it out.
Yeah, like a dog, and start panning. That would be nice. It's a shame that's a movie set. You have all these websites talking about how it's the ranch and this and that. It's like, really? I'll make sure I clarify it in on my website so that other people don't make the same mistake I did today. Because that was just ridiculous. The wood's probably old. Because you could buy, you know, they have collapsed structures and old houses. You can buy the wood.
I watched them last night on that show.
Uh-huh.
They can age wood within 4 hours.
Oh, wow. Well, that wood's pretty aged.
With vinegar.
Oh.
It's a vinegar solution. They spray on it and they leave it out in the sun.
I didn't know that.
100 years.
100 years? Well, maybe it's aged wood. Maybe they aged it. Because it looks so old, and it's just not. It's like, wow. It's still cool to photograph. It's part of the ranch's history, along with its long history of providing food and cattle and livestock for the miners of the Ghost Pilotville, Ghost Town, and Placerville, and Coloma also. This is Gold Rush history here, but I would have never guessed that's a movie set. It's good they had a little sign that, and those guys were there to tell us that, because I'd have been making videos about how it's part of the ranch all day long. Definitely not coyotes. Alright. He's coming. And I'm going before I get bit. I caught him making some high-pitched sounds. That was the barking. I thought it would be coyotes at first. It's not coyotes. But you never know. There are packs of coyotes, and they do prey upon sheep. He's watching me. Wow. Yep, there's our culprit. Sheep herding dogs. They warn you about the dogs. As long as you don't get too close to sheep, they won't mess with you. But he was staring me down. He started to come up to me. I'm like, no, 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 no. But I have to investigate. You have to understand. We're a paranormal group. So we want to know, is it wolves? Is it coyotes? Is it just sheepdogs? It's our job to investigate, and that's exactly what I was doing. I wanted to see what kind of wildlife is here, and we know there's coyotes, but they probably don't come near those dogs because those dogs protect the sheep. And they're much bigger than coyotes, and so they're very, you don't want to mess with them. No less, it's still important to investigate. That's what we do here. And so we found our culprit, sheepdog. It was good though. I heard it, didn't see it. Came down the road, the kids spotted it. I seen him looking at me, and I filmed him. It's all part of the ranch. I put it all together. It'll look really good on our site. So you can kind of see how the sheep, how they herd the sheep and watch over the sheep, and how it's an open range. You get a little bit of everything today in this update, in this edition and videos. You get to see sheep on the run, dogs on the run, guarding them. That's why he's up there. He's guarding that sheep that's by itself under the tree in the shade. There's very little shade, so the sheep try to find any tree they can during the day just to keep cool. And, you know, they have thick wool, so they cannot be comfortable out in the open, especially, well, during the morning they were out, but now the sun's beaming down. I don't blame them for going up on the hills, hiding under the trees. The ranchers and the early miners loved this valley here because they felt it was much cooler than being in the Sacramento or Stockton, Sacramento Valley. Early cities like Stockton, it was just so hot. 100 degrees summers with very little shade. So you could come up to the foothills, set up camp up on the hill, not too far from the river, get a hammock under a tree, and that was home. You could stay cool all summer long under that tree. And then, well, not with the global warming, right? But back in the day, you could. Back in the day, it was considered sleeping under a conifer was living. It was paradise back in the pioneer days when they first came up here looking for gold. They could rest under a tree and it'd keep them cool. But you have to understand that our planet's temperature has gone up 15 degrees in the last 100 years. When originally it's supposed to be 82 degrees, 85 degrees on a summer day, now it's 100 degrees here. And that's why it's all brown. There's still wildlife here, but there would be more if it was greener and more lush and had more precipitation, which it does not. Not many remnants remain of the ranch. There are some newer ones, such as this corral and cattle herding area. It's obviously not used. There's a bunch of wiring, but you could put the bulls down here, or cattle, or sheep, and then load them into the next fence over, or corral. So we're out of here. Went to the American River South Fork, the old movie set, toured miles of this ranch in the Sierra Foothills. It's amazing, but it's as hot as Australia out here. Do not do this hike in the summer unless you want dehydration and heat stroke to set in. This is very dangerous. Not a lot of shade here, but it was still worthwhile. A lot of nature, a lot of beauty. I'm sure in the spring this place is much greener and has more wildlife than the middle of August. This is Lord Rick. Oh, there's a lizard. Peace out.